Well, Senegal holding key parliamentary elections this Sunday. Historically, it's a politically stable country, but tensions have been high since violent protests broke out last year. This weekend's poll could also set the scene for a presidential election in 2024 that could see Macky Sall run for a controversial third term. He's been accused of stifling his rivals and failing on promises to improve livelihoods. Sam Bradpiece reports.
Lot of opposition candidates, including some particularly high-profile ones. We're talking about people like Ousmane Sonko, Déthié Fall. They've been prevented, actually, from taking part in the race altogether by the country's constitutional court. Now, officially, this is because the constitutional court said that there was an error on the so-called candidate lists that all the parties need to put forward when they're submitting the names of the candidates to stand in the election. However, unofficially, the opposition will say that actually this is part of Macky Sall's wider strategy to try to kind of sideline the opposition. It's worth noting a couple of deputies, or I should say MPs, last month were temporarily detained, arrested, because of their role in protests against this Constitutional Council decision. Essentially, what we're looking at here is a context in which many analysts are worried about the decline or the state of democracy in Senegal, precisely because they feel opposition candidates are kind of being pushed to the side by a government determined to cling on to power. You could call it a dry run for 2024 in the sense that many analysts are looking at this legislative election as somewhat of a referendum on the president's leadership. That's President Macky Sall. And the result of this election could perhaps influence whether Macky Sall decides to run for a third term in office. Should he do so, this would be on quite shaky constitutional ground. Officially, the constitution limits the Senegalese presidency to just 2 terms. This is something that Sall had pushed for himself. And so, yeah, in a sense, many people are looking at this legislative election as a kind of referendum on that decision. The president himself has said that he won't announce whether he'll run for a third term until after the legislative vote. Meanwhile, the other important point to note is that should the opposition coalition, or the main opposition coalition, manage to overturn the governing majority in parliament, this will make it much harder for President Macky Sall to push through his legislative agenda. So those are really the 2 key points coming out of Sunday's vote.